In 2016, American spies in Cuba started waking up in the middle of the night. Not because of a nightmare. Because something was drilling into their skulls. They described it like this. Imagine taking a Q-tip too far into your ear, bouncing it off your eardrum. Now take a sharp pencil, and just keep poking. Time. That is what it felt like, every night, in their own apartments. Within days, trained CIA officers could not walk straight, could not remember conversations from hours before. Brain scans showed damage that looked exactly like a car crash. They had never left their rooms. The US government's response was not to investigate. It was not to warn others. It was not to protect the people who had dedicated their lives to serving their country in a foreign city. They were told it was probably stress, a pre-existing condition, an environmental factor. Reader's Digest. They were silenced, and then the same thing started happening. In China, in Germany, in Austria, in Russia, in Colombia, on the grounds of the White House, inside CIA headquarters in Virginia. Over 1,500 people. Same sound, same damage, same silence. And here is the part that should disturb every single person watching this. The weapon used to do all of this. Fits in a backpack, makes no sound, leaves no trace, penetrates walls from several hundred feet away. And its vital components were made in Russia. The travel. This is Havana Syndrome. And this is what they did not want you to know. It started with one man. December 2016. A CIA officer working undercover at the newly reopened American embassy in Havana, Cuba, woke up alone in his apartment in the middle of the night. There was a sound, high-pitched, metallic, coming from one specific direction, directly at his head. He became known only as Patient Zero. 2 weeks later it happened again. Same apartment, same sound, same skull-crushing pressure. And by February 2017, nearly every officer in the small Havana station had been affected. YouTube. The CIA began quietly evacuating staff. No press conferences, no public warning, no acknowledgement of any kind. They simply moved people out, in silence, because something in that city was destroying the brains of American intelligence officers. And the people at the top, the people who were supposed to be protecting them, already knew something the officers on the ground did not. They just were not saying it. A former CIA officer who later joined the unit investigating these cases described what he found. He said these were his colleagues, his friends, people he had worked alongside for years, and he watched their lives get destroyed, careers ruined, children affected, kids with lifelong developmental issues, adults still experiencing cognitive problems years later. CBS News. He said it became a moral issue for him, because the agency kept saying, "Our people are our highest priority." But when it actually came down to it, the very first thing he heard when he arrived at the investigation unit was this: "Our job is to bring down the temperature on AHI at headquarters." CBS News. Not find the truth. Not protect the victims. Bring down the temperature. Stop people from asking questions. He eventually left. He said he left because he saw it destroy families, destroy kids, destroy careers, and it was somewhere he could no longer keep working after that. CBS News. Then the attacks moved beyond Cuba, and everything got worse. One U.S. official reported hearing a device operating directly above his child's crib in the middle of the night. His child has since experienced persistent symptoms including lifelong sensitivity to light. Indian Defense Review. A child, in a crib, targeted by an invisible weapon. While sleeping, a CIA officer named Chris and his wife Heidi were attacked 5 separate times inside their own home in the United States. During one attack, Heidi woke up with immense joint pain across her entire body. A doctor later discovered that the bones in her shoulder were dissolving, a condition called osteolysis. She required surgery. ED blog. Bones dissolving inside a sleeping woman's shoulder from a weapon fired through the walls of her house by someone outside who was never identified, who left no trace. A Justice Department official's wife stationed in Europe described her attack. She said it just pierced her ears, came through the window into her left ear, fullness in her head, a piercing headache. Multiple surgeries have tried to repair the bones in her inner ear and her skull. ED blog. Multiple surgeries to rebuild bones inside her skull from something she never saw coming. One victim was asked, "Is this life-altering?" They said, "Absolutely, for our whole family." Time. And then in August 2021, a trip to Vietnam by Vice President Kamala Harris was delayed for over 3 hours after the U.S. Embassy in Hanoi reported a possible anomalous health incident there. Scientific American. the Vice President of the United States, held on a plane, because the invisible weapon might be in the building ahead of her. By the early 2020s, U.S. officials estimated that 1,500 cases had been reported across 96 countries. YouTube, 96 countries, same sound, same pressure, same brain damage, every single time. And now here is where the story stops being a medical mystery and becomes something far darker, because throughout all of this, throughout the child above his crib, throughout the woman having surgery on her skull, throughout the vice president being held on a plane, the official position of the United States government never changed. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence stated clearly that these cases did not involve a foreign adversary. That a foreign government was very unlikely to be responsible. That the events were probably caused by pre-existing conditions and environmental factors. Reader's Digest. Pre-existing conditions. For over 1,500 people. Across 96 countries. All reporting the same thing, but the investigators who actually touched the evidence told a completely different story. Military investigator Greg Ed Green, who handled the classified documents, said that consistently across every single case there was one common thread. A Russia nexus. Every victim had worked against Russia, had focused on Russia, had done extremely well against Russian interests. Indian Defense Review. Every single victim had one thing in common. They had all been effective against Russia. Then investigative journalist Christo Grozev, the man who exposed the Russian agents who poisoned Alexei Navalny, found something. An email. Payment records showing services provided to the Russian government by a member of Russia's Unit 29155 for work on the potential capabilities of non-lethal acoustic weapons. YouTube, Unit 29155. Russia's most elite intelligence unit. The people who poison dissidents, who assassinate enemies of the Kremlin across foreign borders, who leave no trace. Senior members of this unit received awards and promotions specifically for their work developing non-lethal acoustic weapons, and their phone records and travel documents placed them in the exact cities at the exact times when American officials were attacked. In Poland, Georgia, Australia, Taiwan. YouTube, same city, same day, same hour. Every single time. Greg Ed Green, who led the Pentagon's own classified investigation, retired from the army after what he found. He told 60 Minutes, "If my mother had seen what I saw, she would say, 'It's the Russians, stupid.'" Time. And what did the government say in response to all of this? A foreign adversary is very unlikely to be responsible. Reader's Digest. Very unlikely. And then in 2024, everything changed. Because the government accidentally proved that everything the victims had been saying for 8 years was true. U.S. agents who investigate illicit arms dealers heard that a Russian criminal network was selling a microwave weapon. Undercover agents of the Department of Homeland Security bought it. The mission cost $15 million, funded by the Pentagon. The travel. $15 million for one weapon. The device is portable, concealable, silent, generates no heat. Programmable for different scenarios, operable by remote control, range of several hundred feet, penetrates windows and walls, vital components made in Russia, and the key sources say is not the hardware, it is the software. The programming shapes a unique electromagnetic wave that rises and falls abruptly and pulses rapidly. The travel, silent, invisible, fits in a backpack, fires through walls, made in Russia. For years some inside the CIA had insisted that any microwave weapon powerful enough to cause these injuries would need to be the size of a truck. That was the foundation of the official denial. That was why they called 1,500 victims delusional. That was why they told people with dissolving bones and destroyed careers and children with lifelong developmental issues that it was probably just stress. The weapon they bought in 2024 fits in a backpack. The Pentagon tested it on animals. The injuries it produced were consistent with the symptoms reported by Havana Syndrome victims. The travel. Not similar. Consistent. The exact same injuries. In the exact same parts of the brain. Members of the National Security Council eventually called 6 victims to the White House and told them, "We believe you." Something had changed. New intelligence had come in. Watch Mojo. We believe you. After 8 years, after careers destroyed, after children with permanent neurological damage, after bones rebuilt with surgery, after being called delusional by the very agencies those people had served, after all of that, we believe you. So here is exactly where we stand. A weapon exists, portable, silent, Russian-made, tested by the Pentagon, proven to cause the exact injuries 1,500 people described. A Russian assassination unit received awards for building this exact weapon. Their members were present in every city where every attack occurred. Christo Grozev, who has spent years tracking this, said this is probably Putin's biggest victory against the West. Not with missiles, not with bombs. With a weapon so small it fits in a bag, so silent it leaves no trace, so deniable that the most powerful government on earth spent 8 years telling its own people that nothing had happened. Time. Putin's biggest victory. A backpack. And a government willing to look the other way. And I want you to think about one last thing before this ends. The people who were attacked were CIA officers, FBI agents, White House advisors, military investigators, the vice president's own staff, the most protected, the most surveilled, the most security-conscious people in the world, people whose entire careers were built around knowing when someone was watching them. They had no idea. They felt nothing unusual in the moment. The symptoms appeared hours later. And their own government spent 8 years telling them it was stress. One CIA officer said, "I saw it destroy families, destroy kids, destroy careers. These were my friends." And the agency's response was to bring down the temperature. To stop the questions, not to find the truth. CBS News. The weapon is real. The attacks were real. The damage was real. The children affected are real. The careers destroyed are real. The only thing that was not real was the government that was supposed to be protecting them. And if they could not protect the people whose entire job was to see threats coming, what chance does anyone else have?